He was called the Mad Monk, a seducer, a mystic, and a healer. Grigory Rasputin was one of the most important and controversial figures of the late Russian Empire. How did a simple peasant become the trusted advisor and friend to Tsar Nicholas II and his wife Alexandra? Rasputin's story is a whirlwind of political influence, wild parties, and rumored love affairs. His life and dramatic fall have captivated writers, filmmakers, and even songwriters for over a century. But even though his name is known around the world, much of his life is still wrapped in mystery. Today, we're diving deep into the incredible life of Grigory Rasputin, uncovering 11 unbelievable facts that sound like they're straight out of a movie. Let's start at the very beginning. Not much is known for sure about Rasputin's early years. For historians, his life before his religious conversion is a bit of a black box, but we've managed to piece together some details that give us a glimpse into his childhood. Grigory Rasputin was reportedly born into a family with 7 children. The shocking part, none of his siblings made it to adulthood. He was born in a small, remote Siberian village called Pokrovskoy, where life was incredibly harsh. In those days, it was common for families to have many children, hoping that at least one would survive the difficult conditions. In Rasputin's case, he was the only one. This lonely start in a tough world perhaps shaped the extraordinary man he would become. Before he was the Mad Monk, he was just a regular guy. For most of his early life, Rasputin was a peasant. It wasn't until his late 20s, around the 1890s, that he became deeply involved with the Orthodox Church. Before that, he lived a surprisingly normal life. He got married, had children, and worked the land like any other peasant in his village. It's hard to imagine the infamous Rasputin living a quiet, domestic life. But for a while, that was his reality. Everything changed in 1897 when a profound religious experience completely turned his world upside down, setting him on a path that would lead him straight to the heart of the Russian Empire. So what happened during that religious experience? In 1897, Rasputin went on a pilgrimage. He visited various monasteries and is believed to have encountered a controversial sect known as the Klisti. One of their core beliefs was that the only way to get closer to God was to sin deliberately and then repent with all your heart. While there's no concrete proof he officially joined them, his lifestyle after this awakening certainly mirrored their practices. The Klisti were known for enthusiastically indulging in sins like heavy drinking and promiscuity. After this pilgrimage, Rasputin began traveling across Russia, declaring himself a holy man with supernatural abilities, including the power to heal the sick. But did he really have healing powers? In 1905, just after a major revolution shook Russia, Rasputin was introduced to the royal family. He quickly grew close to them, especially after he seemed to miraculously stabilize the health of the young heir, Alexei, who suffered from hemophilia. This act won him the undying loyalty of Tsar Nicholas II and, even more so, his wife, Alexandra. However, it's highly unlikely that Rasputin possessed any real supernatural abilities. Even the royal family's inner circle was skeptical. It's more probable that he used hypnosis, a skill he likely picked up during his religious travels. Hypnosis was actually quite common among Orthodox holy men at the time, and Rasputin often used his mesmerizing gaze and calming voice to great effect, especially when trying to impress the ladies of the Russian nobility. Speaking of the nobility, Rasputin didn't exactly fit in. According to almost everyone who met him, his manners were appalling. Coming from a simple peasant background, he wasn't used to the refined etiquette of the royal court. Things like forks and knives weren't common in his village. But his bad habits went beyond simple unfamiliarity. Witnesses reported that he would often lick the serving spoons before passing them to others and would have bits of food stuck in his long beard for days. On top of that, he rarely bathed and was known to have a very strong, unpleasant body odor. Despite all this, he somehow managed to charm his way into the highest circles of power. His confidence was certainly off the charts. After his religious awakening, Rasputin didn't just claim to be a healer. He declared himself a holy man sent by God. He fully embraced this mystical persona, even introducing himself this way to the Romanovs. He claimed he was on a divine mission to save the Russian Empire. In one incredible instance, he told the French ambassador that, despite his own terrible sins, he was Christ in miniature. Normally, such statements would be dismissed as the ramblings of a madman. But the astonishing thing is, a significant portion of the Russian nobility, including the Tsarina Alexandra herself, actually believed him and hung on his every word. This brings us to his legendary reputation as a seducer. Despite his self-proclaimed holiness and his frankly terrible hygiene, Rasputin was famous for his sinful activities. The Mad Monk was a notorious drinker, rarely seen sober. When he wasn't drinking, he was often in the company of various ladies from the court. He managed to win over countless noble women, and it's even rumored that he had an affair with the Empress Alexandra. While that remains a topic of historical debate, what is certain is his immense influence over her. When the Tsar left to command the army in 1916, he left Alexandra in charge of the country, and she blindly followed Rasputin's advice on matters of state. His popularity with the women of St. Petersburg only made him more enemies among the jealous and resentful upper class. His influence extended far beyond the bedroom and into the war room. Rasputin was strongly against Russia entering World War I. He warned that the conflict would be a disaster for the country and would lead to catastrophic consequences for the monarchy. When his advice was ignored, he insisted on going to the front lines to bless the troops. That request was furiously denied. The army's commander-in-chief, Grand Duke Nicholas Nikolaevich, swore he would hang Rasputin if he ever came near the front. As it turned out, Rasputin was right. The Russian army suffered devastating defeats early on. This led Tsar Nicholas II to finally take Rasputin's advice, fire his commander, and take personal command of the army himself. This was a terrible move. It left the government in the hands of his wife and Rasputin, and it did nothing to change the course of the war, making the Tsar even more unpopular. In the end, Rasputin's grim predictions about the war's effect on the empire and the royal family came true. Perhaps his most chilling prediction was about his own death. In his letters to Tsar Nicholas II after the monarch left for the front, Rasputin seemed preoccupied with his own demise. In a letter from December 1916, he wrote, "I feel that I shall leave this life before January 1st. If it was your relations who have wrought my death, then none of your children will remain alive for more than 2 years." And indeed, it was the Tsar's own relatives who plotted his end. Fed up with his influence, a group of prominent nobles in Petrograd, as St. Petersburg was then called, planned his murder. It took place in late December 1916, just 2 months before the revolution that would topple the Romanov dynasty. And just as he predicted, the Tsar's children were all tragically executed about a year and a half after Rasputin's death. But the 1916 assassination wasn't the first attempt on his life. His enemies weren't just in the nobility. Many in the Orthodox Church condemned the self-proclaimed Christ in miniature. One of his fiercest critics was a monk named Ilyador, who blamed Rasputin for the royal family's poor decisions. On July 12, 1914, a peasant woman and follower of Ilyador, named Chionya Gusefa, walked up to Rasputin on the street and stabbed him in the stomach. The wound was severe, with his intestines reportedly hanging out. But the mad monk managed to run away and, incredibly, survived. The would-be assassin was declared insane and sent to an asylum. Ilyador, hearing that the attempt had failed, quickly fled the country. Finally, we come to his legendary death. His assassins were led by Prince Felix Yusupov, a wealthy noble and husband to the Tsar's niece. On December 29, 1916, Yusupov lured Rasputin to his palace. There, along with his co-conspirators, he fed the monk cakes and wine laced with a massive amount of cyanide. To their utter astonishment, the poison seemed to have no effect. Rasputin just kept eating and drinking as if nothing was wrong. Frustrated, Yusupov shot him, but even that didn't finish him. Rasputin managed to get up and stagger out into the courtyard, where he was shot several more times. Finally, the conspirators beat him, tied him up, and threw his body into the freezing Neva River. His supposed resistance to poison and bullets cemented his mythical status, making the story of his death as unbelievable as the story of his life. From a Siberian peasant to the power behind the throne, Rasputin's life was a truly wild ride. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into one of history's most mysterious figures. What fact did you find the most shocking? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most fascinating stories. We'll see you in the next one.